This is a list of paradoxes, grouped thematically. The grouping is approximate, as paradoxes may fit into more than one category. Because of varying definitions of the term paradox, some of the following are not considered to be paradoxes by everyone. This list collects only scenarios that have been called a paradox by at least one source and have their own article. Although considered paradoxes, some of these are based on fallacious reasoning, or incomplete, faulty analysis. Informally, the term is often used to describe a counterintuitive result. Logic. Barbershop paradox: the supposition that if one of two simultaneous assumptions leads to a contradiction, the other assumption is also disproved leads to paradoxical consequences. Not to be confused with the Barber Paradox. What the tortoise said to Achilles: whatever logic is good enough to tell me is worth writing down, also known as Carroll's Paradox. Not to be confused with the physical paradox of the same name. Catch-22: a situation in which someone is in need of something that can only be had by not being in need of it. A soldier who wants to be declared insane in order to avoid combat is deemed not insane for that very reason, and will therefore not be declared insane. Drinker paradox: in any pub there is a customer of whom it is true to say, if that customer drinks, everybody in the pub drinks. Paradox of entailment: inconsistent premises always make an argument valid. Lottery paradox: if there is one winning ticket in a large lottery, it is reasonable to believe of any particular lottery ticket that it is not the winning ticket, but it is not reasonable to believe that no lottery ticket will win. Raven paradox: observing a green apple increases the likelihood of all ravens being black. Russ paradox: disjunction introduction poses a problem for imperative inference by seemingly permitting arbitrary imperatives to be inferred. Unexpected hanging paradox: the day of the hanging will be a surprise, so it cannot happen at all, so it will be a surprise. The surprise examination and bottle imp paradox use similar logic. Self-reference: these paradoxes have in common a contradiction arising either from self-reference or from circular reference, in which several statements refer to each other in a way that following some of the references leads back to the starting point. Barber paradox: a barber shaves all and only those men who do not shave themselves. Does he shave himself? Barber's paradox: the thesis that there are some things which are unnameable conflicts with the notion that something is named by calling it unnameable. Berry paradox: the phrase, the first number not nameable in under 10 words, appears to name it in 9 words. Crocodile dilemma: if a crocodile steals a child and promises its return if the father can correctly guess exactly what the crocodile will do, how should the crocodile respond in the case that the father guesses that the child will not be returned? Paradox of the court: a law student agrees to pay his teacher after winning his first case. The teacher then sues the student for payment. Curry's paradox: if this sentence is true, then Santa Claus exists. Epimenides paradox: a cretin says, all cretins are liars. This paradox works in mainly the same way as the liar paradox. Grelling-Nelson paradox: is the word heterological, meaning not applicable to itself, a heterological word. Klein-Rosser paradox: by formulating an equivalent to Richard's paradox, and types lambda calculus is shown to be inconsistent. Liar paradox: this sentence is false. This is the canonical self-referential paradox. Also, is the answer to this question no, and I'm lying? Card paradox: the next statement is true, the previous statement is false, a variant of the liar paradox that does not use self-reference. Pinocchio paradox: what would happen if Pinocchio said, my nose will be growing? Quine's paradox: yields of falsehood when appended to its own quotation. Yields of falsehood when appended to its own quotation shows that a sentence can be paradoxical even if it is not self-referring and does not use demonstratives or indexicals. Yablar's paradox: an ordered infinite sequence of sentences, each of which says that all following sentences are false. While constructed to avoid self-reference, there is no consensus whether it relies on self-reference or not. Opposite day. It is opposite day to day, therefore it is not opposite day, but if you say it is a normal day it would be considered a normal day. Petronius Paradox. Moderation in all things, including moderation. Richard's paradox. We appear to be able to use simple English to define a decimal expansion in a way that is self-contradictory. Russell's paradox. Does the set of all those sets that do not contain themselves contain itself? Socratic Paradox. I know that I know nothing at all. Vagueness. Ship of Theseus. It seems like you can replace any component of a ship, and it is still the same ship. So you can replace them all, one at a time, and it is still the same ship. However, you can then take all the original pieces, and assemble them into a ship. That, too, is the same ship you began with. Socratic Paradox. If you remove a single grain of sand from a heap, you still have a heap. Keep removing single grains, and the heap will disappear. Can a single grain of sand make the difference between heap and non-heap? Mathematics. All horses are the same color. A proof by induction that all horses have the same color. Kramer's paradox. The number of points of intersection of two higher-order curves can be greater than the number of arbitrary points needed to define one such curve. Elevator paradox. Elevators can seem to be mostly going in one direction, as if they were being manufactured in the middle of the building and being disassembled on the roof and basement. Interesting number paradox. The first number that can be considered dull rather than interesting becomes interesting because of that fact. Non-transitive dice. You can have 3 dice, called A, B, and C, such that A is likely to win in a roll against B. B is likely to win in a roll against C, and C is likely to win in a roll against A. Potato paradox. If you let potatoes consisting of 99% water dry so that they are 98% water, they lose 50% of their weight. Russell's paradox. Does the set of all those sets that do not contain themselves contain itself? Statistics. Abelson's paradox. Effect size may not be indicative of practical meaning. Accuracy paradox. Predictive models with a given level of accuracy may have greater predictive power than models with higher accuracy. Benford's law. Numbers starting with lower digits appear disproportionately often in seemingly random datasets. Bergson's paradox. A complicating factor arising in statistical tests of proportions. Friedman's paradox describes a problem in model selection where predictor variables with no explanatory power can appear artificially important. Friendship paradox. For almost everyone, the friends have more friends than they do. Inspection paradox. Why one will wait longer for a bus than one should. Lindley's paradox. Tiny errors in the null hypothesis are magnified when large data sets are analyzed, leading to false but highly statistically significant results. Low birth weight paradox. Low birth weight and mothers who smoke contribute to a higher mortality rate. Babies of smokers have lower average birth weight, but low birth weight babies born to smokers have a lower mortality rate than other low birth weight babies. This is a special case of Simpson's paradox. Simpson's paradox, or the Yule-Simpson effect. A trend that appears in different groups of data disappears when these groups are combined, and the reverse trend appears for the aggregate data. Will Rogers phenomenon. The mathematical concept of an average, whether defined as the mean or median, leads to apparently paradoxical results. For example, it is possible that moving an entry from an encyclopedia to a dictionary would increase the average entry length on both books. Probability. Bertrand's box paradox. A paradox of conditional probability closely related to the boy or girl paradox. Bertrand's paradox. Different common sense definitions of randomness give quite different results. Birthday paradox. What is the chance that 2 people in a room have the same birthday? Borel's paradox. Conditional probability density functions are not invariant under coordinate transformations. Boy or girl paradox. A two-child family has at least one boy. What is the probability that it has a girl? False positive paradox. A test that is accurate the vast majority of the time could show you have a disease, but the probability that you actually have it could still be tiny. Grice's paradox shows that the exact meaning of statements involving conditionals and probabilities is more complicated than may be obvious on casual examination. Monty Hall problem, an unintuitive consequence of conditional probability. Necktie Paradox. A wager between two people seems to favor them both. Very similar in essence to the two-envelope paradox. Pro-Epstein's paradox. The Kelly criterion is an often optimal strategy for maximizing profit in the long run. Pro-Epstein's paradox apparently shows that the Kelly criterion can lead to ruin. Sleeping Beauty problem. A probability problem that can be correctly answered as 1/2 or 1/3 depending on how the question is approached. Three cards problem. When pulling a random card, how do you determine the color of the underside? Three prisoners problem. A variation of the Monty Hall problem. Two-envelope paradox. You are given two indistinguishable envelopes, each of which contains a positive sum of money. One envelope contains twice as much as the other. You may pick one envelope and keep whatever amount it contains. You pick one envelope at random, but before you open it you are given the chance to take the other envelope instead. Infinity and infinitesimals, or a life-order paradox. If the ordinal numbers formed a set, it would be an ordinal number that is smaller than itself. Cantor's paradox. The set of all sets would have its own power set as a subset. Therefore its cardinality would be at least as great as that of its power set. But Cantor's theorem proves that power sets are strictly greater than the sets they're constructed from. Consequently, the set of all sets would contain a subset greater than itself. Galileo's paradox. Though most numbers are not squares, there are no more numbers than squares. Hilbert's paradox of the Grand Hotel. If a hotel with infinitely many rooms is full, it can still take in more guests. Russell's paradox. Does the set of all those sets that do not contain themselves contain itself? Scolam's paradox. Countably infinite models of set theory contain uncountably infinite sets. Zeno's paradox is, you will never reach point B from point A, as you must always get halfway there, and half of the half, and half of that half, and so on. Supertasks may result in paradoxes such as Bernardette's paradox. Apparently, a man can be forced to stay where he is by the mere unfulfilled intentions of the gods. Russ. Littlewood paradox. After alternatively adding and removing bowls to a vase infinitely often, how many bowls remain? Thomson's lamp. After flicking a lamp on and off infinitely often, is it on or off? Geometry and topology. Banach-Tashi paradox. Cut a ball into a finite number of pieces, reassemble the pieces to get two balls, both of equal size to the first. The von Neumann paradox is a two-dimensional analog paradoxical set, a set that can be partitioned into two sets, each of which is equivalent to the original. Coastline paradox. The perimeter of a landmass is in general ill-defined. Coin rotation paradox. A coin rotating along the edge of an identical coin will make a full revolution after traversing only half of the stationary coin circumference. Gabriel's horn or Torricelli's trumpet. A simple object with finite volume but infinite surface area. Also, the Mandelbrot set and various other fractals are covered by a finite area, but have an infinite perimeter. This can be represented by a Klein bottle. Hausdorff paradox. There exists a countable subset C of the sphere S such that S(C) is equidecomposable with two copies of itself. Nicodim set. A set contained in and with the same Lebesgue measure as the unit square. Yet for every one of its points there is a straight line intersecting the Nicodim set only in that point. Sphere eversion. A sphere can, topologically, be turned inside out. Decision theory. Abilene paradox. People can make decisions based not on what they actually want to do, but on what they think that other people want to do. with the result that everybody decides to do something that nobody really wants to do, but only what they thought that everybody else wanted to do. Apportionment paradox. Some systems of apportioning representation can have unintuitive results due to rounding. Alabama paradox. Increasing the total number of seats might shrink one block's seats. New states paradox. Adding a new state or voting block might increase the number of votes of another. Population paradox. A fast-growing state can lose votes to a slow-growing state. Arrows paradox. Given more than two choices, no system can have all the attributes of an ideal voting system at once. Buridan's asks, how can a rational choice be made between two outcomes of equal value? Chain store paradox. Even those who know better play the so-called chain store game in an irrational manner. Decision-making paradox. Selecting the best decision-making method is a decision problem in itself. Fenno's paradox. The belief that people generally disapprove of the United States Congress as a whole, but support the congressman from their own congressional district. Fredkin's paradox. The more similar two choices are, the more time of decision-making agent spends on deciding. Green paradox. Policies intending to reduce future CO2 emissions may lead to increased emissions in the present. Hedgehog's dilemma or lover's paradox. Despite goodwill, human intimacy cannot occur without substantial mutual harm. Inventors paradox. It is easier to solve a more general problem that covers the specifics of the sought-after solution. Kafka's toxin puzzle. Can one intend to drink the non-deadly toxin, if the intention is the only thing needed to get the reward? Morton's fork. Choosing between unpalatable alternatives. Navigation paradox. Increased navigational precision may result in increased collision risk. Newcomb's paradox. How do you play a game against an omniscient opponent? Paradox of tolerance. Should one tolerate intolerance if intolerance would destroy the possibility of tolerance? Paradox of voting, also known as the Downs paradox. For a rational, self-interested voter, the costs of voting will normally exceed the expected benefits. So why do people keep voting? Parondo's paradox. It is possible to play two losing games alternately to eventually win. Prevention paradox. For one person to benefit, many people have to change their behavior, even though they receive no benefit, or even suffer from the change. Prisoner's dilemma. Two people might not cooperate even if it is in both their best interests to do so. Relevance paradox. Sometimes relevant information is not sought out because its relevance only becomes clear after the information is available. Voting paradox, also known as Condorcet's paradox and paradox of voting. A group of separately rational individuals may have preferences that are irrational in the aggregate. Willpower paradox. Those who kept their minds open were more goal-directed and more motivated than those who declared their objective to themselves.